September 1976 to November 1977, the Dreamtime cruise around Melanesia. Dreamtime was an 11-metre, 36 feet, steel yacht rigged as a ketch. Built by me in Melbourne and launched January 1974. Media in these Dreamtime in Melanesia movies is digitised from 50-year-old stock. These highlight versions have less navigation information than the cruising guides. Cairns to Lae, departing September 1976. We had sailed up the Queensland coast as far as Lizard Island. Where the diving was very interesting. Returning to Cairns, we took up a temporary mooring again. Across the inlet from the Cairns Yacht Club, while finalising departure. Departing the 10th of September, 1976, 4 days Cairns to Samarai. David came along for the crossing. The lighthouse guided us along the Grafton Passage, out through the reef. Fitzroy Island was the last we saw of Australia for 15 months. 4 days later, approaching Samarai Island. Sextant position calculations. No such thing as GPS in 1976. To anchor at tiny Samarai Island, to clear customs. Until 1968, the administration centre for the province. Suddenly, a different world. Carving an outrigger for a canoe. Public toilets. Play canoes made from corrugated roofing iron. A traditional canoe with outrigger. David left us at Samarai on a government boat to Alotau to fly to Port Moresby, then Townsville. A short hop over to Quato and Rajaya Islands. The jetty on Quato in the pass between the two islands. Our first encounter of leftover wartime wreckage. An interesting use of PNG traditional thatch to clad the church. To Alotau, with an overnight in Tikopia Bay. In 1968, it became the main administration town for the province. David left us earlier to fly back from here via Port Moresby to Australia. A patrol boat donated to PNG by Australia, with a PNG Navy deck crew. We were invited to dinner by the 3 Australian officers. We arrived on the first anniversary of PNG independence. So there were a lot of celebration events, including rugby. Alotau in Milne Bay was the scene of a major battle against Japanese forces. Australian forces won in September 1942, and it is acknowledged. as the first land defeat of the Japanese in the whole of the Pacific War. Australian assembled Curtiss Kitty Hawks helped significantly. The runways were constructed from Marston mats so planes didn't sink into mud. The Kitty Hawks were used against ground forces and naval supply vessels. The success stopped the Japanese from invading Port Moresby and Australia. The current memorial at Alotau, 167 Aussies killed, over 700 Japanese. To Sewa Bay on Normanby Island. Into the southern part of Sewa Bay. Sailing in on the 22nd of September, 1976 to a nice, protected anchorage. We explored the area for several days. The locals were keen to trade. We found bread was in demand as a trade item, for batches in progress. We declined this trade offer. We sailed on through the passage between Normanby and Ferguson Islands. To Bedoya Catholic Mission. The priest invited us to lunch and told us about the Dai Dai thermal springs. Our trek to the hot springs. I was a bit dubious about our guide and his missing foot. Had he boiled it here at a past visit? From Bedoya, we threaded our way through islands and reefs to the Trobriands, stopping at Samarai Island along the way. We sailed into the main bay on Samarai Island, past Pigeon Rock. The Samarai people were renowned clay pot makers, their main trade item. The pots fired in wood bonfires. We did trade a couple while there, not these. From Samarai, we sailed through to Kaibola village on Kiriwina, in the Trobriand Islands. The anchorage, a short walk to Kaibola village. We arrived at the time of the Kaibola Osimoya Dancing. In 1976, the Kaibola dancing was not for tourists. We were the only tourists there. It was part of their local customs and ran for a month or so. Perhaps a fertility ritual for the young people? A yam storage house, a sign of the community wealth. a trip by road to Loshua, the main town on Kiriwina. Even today, not a large town. The primary teacher at Kaibola gave us a lift for the 15 kilometres to Loshua Township. His children there. After school netball training. The children in Melanesia always keen to investigate new arrivals. After experiencing the Trobriands, it was time to head back to the mainland. Again, we threaded our way through reefs, islands and anchorages to Tufi. A thunderstorm crossed our path. The final leg from Ferguson Island across to Tufi on the mainland. A recent aerial view. The parking lot for the visiting festival dancers. Not quite the Rolls-Royce for Sir John. The Australian and New Zealand High Commissioners also came with Sir John. The official welcome to Sir John Guise, Governor General of PNG. A time for speeches and presentations. And then the dancing. From Tufi around to Porlock Harbour. The fjords or rias were formed by the lava flows of the eruptions of 3 volcanoes. Notice the sheer cliffs behind the houses. Porlock Harbour to Oro Bay. From Oro Bay, a 2-day land trip to Kokoda. By PMV, public motor vehicle, via Popondetta. public meeting hall. In 1976, the museum at Kokoda was only a small one, developed by some private citizens. A tribute to the Fuzzy Wuzzy Angels, who carried injured Australian troops. Back down the Kokoda Trail to Port Moresby. It was important for Australia to stop the Japanese from crossing the Owen Stanley Range and taking Port Moresby. We met a Danish rubber tree plantation owner Carl and his wife. They graciously put us up for the night. Carl had just finished building a 54-foot cruising yacht. The next task was to get it down to the sea. We returned to Oro Bay by PMV, then continued sailing to Lae, stopping at Douglas Harbour, Morro Bay, Mort Harbour and Salamaua. Finally, into Lae. Masking out modern marina, to anchor and tie up at the original Lae Yacht Club. More a motorboat and game fishing club than yachting. Helping a local chap get his outboard going again. Amazing what WD-40 can do sometimes. The mighty Markham River in the dry season. One of two bridges, 95 apart as the crow flies. A very large Australian war memorial. Next, we travel by road from Lae to Mount Hagen, up in the PNG highlands, and see some interesting sights.